What's good? It's Woog. I just want to comment really quickly on the Floyd Mayweather exhibition against Mikuru Asakura. This was a scheduled 3-rounder that took place in Saitama, Japan. And, Floyd Mayweather is now a few years removed from his professional boxing career. And, the name exhibition kind of like implies that there's no real danger. I mean, not only is it not officially going on his, spotless 50-0 record, where the 50th win was the boxing win over Conor McGregor, that put him at 50 wins. And then Andre Berto just before that was his 49th professional win. So these exhibitions not only don't go on Floyd Mayweather's record, but the name exhibitions, I think, falsely indicates that there's no danger involved. And I'm sorry, you've got two grown people throwing punches at each other's heads without the headgear on. I mean, there is some level of risk. And no, this might not go on Floyd Mayweather's record whenever it does eventually go wrong. Like, he's 45 years old, right? So he was still able to beat Asakura in a fight where I would think that the word fight is actually appropriate. Yes, Floyd ended up knocking him out in the second of, again, a scheduled 3 rounds. But when you come into a fight, whether it's a boxing match or exhibition, and it ends up being a little bit more difficult than you might have anticipated, even a little bit more difficult, it doesn't take much for that to then become a fight where before you know it, you're like, all right, incoming fire, outgoing fire, let's get it done, right? So this was not an uneventful match. I was actually pretty thoroughly entertained by this second round TKO for Floyd Mayweather. But I'm just wondering, being that Floyd Mayweather, one of the greatest, technical boxers in boxing history, and he obviously a super athletic boxer, especially, in the first 2/3 of his career, obviously he was still tremendously athletic at the time he was beating, Marcos Maidana twice and Manny Pacquiao. He was still supremely athletic, but you saw a slow degradation of the athleticism, especially by the time he was fighting, Conor McGregor, or in the subsequent exhibition matches against first Tenshin Nasukawa, where he knocked Tenshin out in the first round of a scheduled 3-rounder, and then the non-scored fights against Logan Paul and Don Moore. Logan Paul, obviously magnitudes bigger than Floyd Mayweather, and I feel like at the conclusion of that one, the biggest Floyd fans even probably wanted, Floyd to kind of be done with this thing because of how great Floyd had been throughout his whole career. It's just hard to really see him in there for 8 rounds against Logan Paul, and it just looked non-spectacular where, he doesn't do any real damage to Logan Paul and vice versa, and they could both walk away from it like, hey, no harm, no foul. I don't think that, people who watch the career of Floyd Mayweather appreciate those styles of exhibitions. So I think that the appetite for seeing Floyd even in these exhibitions kind of, decreased a bit after that, 8-rounder against, again, the much bigger Logan Paul. But since then he had, fought Don Moore, and now he's fighting Asakura in Japan. And Asakura is, if nothing else, a southpaw who's winging some pretty looping left-handed shots. And it started off pretty measured. You know how Floyd likes to bend his knees, gauge distance, jab to the body, try to see if he could sneak in right hands to the body. So he was doing so somewhat effectively, but it was a little bit of a stalemate during the first couple of minutes. Floyd was always one of the guys who likes to compute the data in the first couple of rounds, and then he more or less has it figured out by the 3rd and 4th round, and then it's all Floyd, usually in Floyd fights from that point forward. But in these first couple rounds, it's going to be interesting as Floyd goes forward with this exhibition style. Like, his next match is against a non-fighter this time, Deji. That's the brother of KSI, who, looked very impressive on that DAZN card where KSI fought 2 guys in one night. Deji is one of the, more impressive looking celebrity fighters, we'll say. So that's going to be Floyd's next match on November 13th. But, this fight against Asakura, yes, again, Floyd knocked him out with a nice, right hand. First, he set him up with a nice check hook because Asakura started to get more confident as he started to land a couple of power punches against against Floyd. And, they drew a smile from Floyd when they would land. And, the crowd obviously gets super excited. And, everybody's just on the edge of their seat, waiting for the moment that Floyd eventually, gets dropped in, a non-controversial way where he just gets, decked, because his style has kind of been predicated on swimming without getting wet, as the legendary trainer Nassim Richardson, the late great Nassim Richardson, said. But Floyd, it has always been kind of threading the needle. It's always been a high wire act where, Floyd has been a master of making somebody miss by literally inches so then he could counter effectively. When you start seeing a degradation in, reflex, even if it's just slight, sometimes that's the difference between making somebody miss by this much and getting popped, drilled with a power punch. And I feel like the audience is always just waiting and thinking, is this going to be the moment where, Floyd catches the fade, essentially? Well, and in watching this, I'm like, damn, is it the moment when you start seeing Floyd kind of get landed on a couple times, and you're just wondering, because you'll see Floyd then, kind of counter with 2 or 3 punches in the first round I'm talking about now. And they both miss with hard 2 to 3 punches at a time. Now, Asakura is not a professional boxer. He's under the Rising banner. He's a mixed martial artist, and he usually fights a couple, divisions below. But in the ring here, he looked about at least the same size-ish as Floyd Mayweather. So at the end of the day, you've got somebody who's in their 20s against a 45-year-old Floyd Mayweather. You just never know with these things. I mean, you think you know, because you know what, at his best or even near best, what Floyd's skill level is. And so that, trumped all else throughout the career of Floyd Mayweather. But when you see him in here against this, guy who's growing in confidence and saying, wait a second, I'm having a little bit of success with this, left hand, and, kind of feinting and then throwing a left and maybe throwing a sweeping right hook. And, before you know it, you think that, you've got a shot at maybe beating Floyd. And Floyd, I mean, you would assume that he's so confident, he's so certain of his skills that he can navigate even the most treacherous of waters. Well, if you are starting to decrease your activity level when you're not training as much, you're just not fighting as much, and when's the last time you just got drilled with a punch to where you've got to kind of clear the cobwebs and figure it out, essentially? Well, Floyd's he's not a professional fighter just day in and day out the way that he used to be through his 20s, teens, before that, and even through his 30s into his 40s. I mean, nearly into his 40s, right around that time. So you just always wonder, how much of this swimming without getting wet is there for Floyd Mayweather? Well, he survived this one, and he survived it with a, again, devastating right hand, just drilled him, because it became a thing where Floyd Mayweather was starting to thread the needle, and it becomes a thing where in milliseconds, you've got to essentially pull the trigger on the right hand to hit him at the exact right time when he's coming in with the punch, and Floyd just caught him upside the head, kind of knocked him down, and you can see the way that Asakura fell over onto his shoulder, and there was a delayed get-up effort that, of course, will have some people saying, oh, this was a fit. Nah, when somebody gets hit with a punch, more or less, and you saw that, the little bit of success that Asakura was having in the first and then in the second round, where he was hitting Floyd kind of flush in the beginning of the second round, and then you see Floyd start putting his foot on the gas and start taking more chances and, start throwing that check left hook as Asakura is coming in, and then threading the needle with the timing of the right hand, trying to catch him with a short, straight right hand, which he did, and that pretty much closed the show at the end of the second round. And I mean, at the end of the second round. So impressive performance given what we got in the first round and in the first half of the second round. The fact that Floyd was still good enough to figure it out pretty quickly and close the show. And maybe I'm a fool for getting overly, just excited at the mystery of what I'm witnessing as, again, this Asakura kid catches Floyd with a couple shots. Maybe I'm the sucker for thinking, oh, man, is this a competitive thing that I'm witnessing? Even if the competitiveness or the time range, the duration of the competitiveness is only a couple of minutes, well, even if it's just a couple of moments, that in itself is going to have people tuning in, because, look, this might have been called an exhibition, But I think that Floyd kind of found himself in a little bit of a fight here, at least momentarily, before he again figured it out. So it's still a high wire act. Yes, he's still magnitudes more skilled than his opponents, but it doesn't take much. Once you get like hit and hurt and you're old and you're not working out in the same way and you're just not as, you're not as durable and your reflexes aren't as sound as they were. It doesn't take much for things to go dramatically wrong very quickly, but this hasn't happened yet for Floyd Mayweather. And quite frankly, as a longtime Floyd Mayweather fan, I don't want to see the moment where he gets drilled and dropped and maybe even finished in one of these exhibitions. So we'll see what the path is going forward, like how long this, quite frankly, very lucrative extended career that Floyd is now kind of carved out for himself here, how long that is able to last. Like now Floyd is, floating out the Floyd versus Conor McGregor 2 fight. Like we'll see if that's a possibility. We'll see if we might get like a Floyd, I don't know, Nate Diaz, who knows? But I am just I'm hoping that he proceeds with caution, because I feel like that in his record, even in these unofficial matches, I feel like they carry some level of significance, because you get the impression that there have been many people who want to see Floyd get finished, lose, just whatever. A lot of people aren't thrilled with Floyd Mayweather. And quite frankly, I could do a series on Floyd videos where we really just hyper analyze his career. Magnificent career. And I just think that there is some significance to us never seeing Floyd go out like that, basically. Like, I think that there is some importance in that. So we'll see how he navigates this post-career going forward. But even if it was momentary, that was pretty exciting between Floyd Mayweather and Mikuru Asakura. But yeah, let me know what you thought of that exhibition. Again, I don't care how big of a skill gap there is between two guys. Once you have two guys basically kind of winging at each other and sometimes both missing at the same time with power punches, it's just one of those random things that you get in fights where anything can happen. And Floyd Mayweather at 45 years old, and he's closer to 46 than he is to 45 even. He's like less than 100 days away from being 46 years old. So he's getting up there, and he made it through this one. I just don't know how much of this there is left. But man, when he started getting serious, it didn't take a long time for him to close the show. And that just speaks to his, just ability and skill level, even if it's against an outmatched opponent who, again, is a fighter, not a boxer. But Floyd did what he had to do here, and that was, not only, win, because this was one of the scored bouts like the Nasukawa one was, but he also entertained. And I think that there is something to be said about that as well. But please let me know your thoughts in the comments. Who would you like to see him fight in one of these exhibitions next, if anybody? Let me know what you think, and please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.